Hi, I'm Josh Carving. Welcome to another Death Battle prediction video. But first, Dark Souls versus Skyrim, or as it is probably better known, Chosen Undead versus Dovahkiin. The episode was actually pretty stellar from a analysis and the animation point of view. One of the things that I will point out with the analysis of them is that it kind of did approach things more from the angle of the story and character aspects of it, which is a lot more different than the a bit more like versus stat front-loaded kind of thing that they typically do. It was very nice to see, and it did tie into things with how the lore more or less ended up being the biggest relevant point with the character stats. And then the fight itself was absolutely stellar, but I feel like anyone who does not have like a in-depth knowledge of Dark Souls is just really confused. They briefly touched on Kath and Frampt in the Chosen Undead's rundown, but when they just start talking during the fight and they don't even actually show up physically, it's very easy to see how it's kind of confusing with that aspect, especially the end where Dovahkiin flops over and it's just left at like this like zooming in of darkness. And then some, like, Vincent Price level evil laughter. And there are a lot of people that I have seen either react to the fight or who I have personally shown the fight. And they react to the end of it with just, wait, who won? Like, and even then, into the verdict itself, it takes a solid minute and a half, 2 minutes before they even make it clear that Dovahkiin did win. Like, they first mention an advantage for Dovahkiin, but then they mention how a bunch of, like, Dovahkiin stuff wouldn't work, and then, like, advantages that, like, Chosen Undead had. And so it leaves you kind of scratching your head being like, wait a second, who won that? But, yeah, it was just him, I guess, going unconscious. I did love the fight itself. It represented a good quantity of their arsenals, as absolutely batshit vast as those arsenals are. The only real issues that I had was a little bit of jank early on in the fight, but I felt like that jank did kind of go away by the later chunks of the fight, especially with the Moonlight Greatsword scene, which was a fantastic callback to both the box art for one of the Dark Souls editions with the like pose of the sword in front of the face, and then also the Moonlight Greatsword scene from Bloodborne. In fact, the whole fight was chock full of tons of references to both of them. Of note, like, there's the scene where he, like, gets stabbed and then, like, pulls himself up the sword and says, prepare to die. The use of silence was really well done. Just overall, it was a fantastic time. Only other gripe with the ending is that Dovahkiin looked incredibly, like, casual about the first flame. Like, it'd be one thing if they're like, oh, they're going for, like, lore accuracy in that regard. At which point, yeah, you could argue that until you point out that at the start of the fight, Chosen Undead was doing more damage before then. It just would have been better if he, like, was at least wincing or showed that there was some form of effort there. But as for the verdict itself, I did say in my prediction that if they consider hollowing a form of death, then Dovahkiin would probably win, which ended up being the case here. The only thing that I didn't much like about the verdict, and in a way wider parts of the episode, is that they didn't really address any of the win conditions that I had actually mentioned. I don't think that there is a specific thing that had happened where the Dovahkiin would be able to resist the life hunt weapons. And even if they decided, yeah, absolutely, the Dovahkiin would be fast enough and strong enough to make it so that the life hunt weapons never hit or the effect wouldn't be present or anything like that, then sure, I would be a lot more at ease with that aspect of the verdict. But my big issue there is that they just kind of didn't mention any of it. Like, they were really non-specific with any of the hacks options that the Chosen Undead had there between the Moonlight Greatsword with Seath's magic and like the transient curses, anything like that. Which, I mean, there's so much stuff to go over for this fight. It can't be expected for them to deal with everything, but I would have liked to have seen at least some of the arguments brought up. And yeah, that's basically all I'll say for this one. It was a very, very good episode. And that brings us to Killua versus Misaka. So this is going to be the first time for both Hunter x Hunter and Toaru, which I think encapsulates two series, one of which is a certain scientific railgun, a certain magical index. So the fun part is that this discussion is immediately after like a really, really in-depth one. And yeah, this one's kind of just a roll, like a total stomp in, I think, almost every regard. You could probably argue that Killua has better martial arts, specifically, but Misaka kind of stomps in every single stat otherwise. More than just being a person who can flick a coin as a railgun, there's faster-than-light speeds. If we go bonkers with it, we can scale her to Accelerator, who, if I recall, halted the physical momentum of the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, spinning for a second, and then put that energy into an attack. So, if we're scaling her to Accelerator, then holy shit. Because I'm pretty sure Hunter x Hunter caps out at, like, town level, unless they're really, like, they found something crazy that's going to make up the gap, but I do not see there being nearly enough to do that. And then in speed, with just the FTL speeds, and even if you start going into, well, she uses electricity, which is something that Killua can absorb. Apparently there is actually a cap for how much he can absorb. He still got hurt when he absorbed 1 million volts. And Misaka's actually does go up to 1 billion, so even that is kind of just a straight up wash when you apply even their own logic to it. Even then, she's actually killed something that was immune to electricity using electricity, because she basically made like a cage of electricity around the thing, and just the thermal energy from the electricity just roasted it. So like the immunity to electricity just meant nothing. There's really and then she can make like a giant like lightning kaiju. She made like a giant storm. That feat alone is stronger than anything that's happened in Hunter x Hunter. She doesn't even need to be scaled to anyone, and she can still just kind of clap the shit out of them. I don't have too much to say on this one. It's going to be pretty one-sided, but what can you do? That's how it goes sometimes. Alright, and I will see you guys for the next one. Have a good one.